Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the From Adversity to Abundance podcast. I am your host, Jamie Bateman, and I am super excited today to have Aaron Hale with us, spending some time with us today. Aaron, how are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. How are you doing, Jamie?
Doing well. Aaron is the owner of Ex- uh, Extraordinary Delights, a fudge company and chocolate company, and he's also a real estate investor. And we're going to get into that. And yeah, and you got a pretty crazy backstory. I heard you on another podcast, as I told you, Aaron, and I was like, I've got to get that guy on my show. You've already been cracking jokes before we hit record. So you've already. I'm supposed to get you relaxed, and you've already got me relaxed for the show. So nice work. We did the buddy check already, so we're good to go. So Aaron, tell the listeners out there who you are and what you're up to today.
I'm a former Navy cook turned Army bomb technician, and I was injured in 2011. Since then, I've become a mountain climber, whitewater kayaker, ultra endurance runner, and I'm a owner of a couple businesses. One being Extraordinary Delights, a um, confection company uh, focusing on mostly on fudge, and uh, from that we kind of turned our the profits, the income from the fudge company
Mm-hmm.
towards real estate.
That's awesome. So now I know you just finished up a virtual race as well. That's pretty cool. So you've got a little more time on your hands today, you told me, because that finished up yesterday. But I'm curious, generally speaking, what's a typical day look like for you today?
Typically, I get up and um, about 5:30 or so, and roused the three man cubs. I've got
Hmm.
11-year-old boy and two identical twin toddler boys, 3 years each. Yeah, of course, uh,
Right.
identical because I shouldn't be the only one that's confused. And uh, so I wrestle them into their clothes and get them ready for mom to get them all out the door. By 7:30 or so, I'm usually on the treadmill, in my home gym working out. But then it's my home office where I
Mhm.
do the admin work for uh, Extraordinary Delights and
Okay.
the real estate business,
Okay.
our, our portfolio.
Nice. So you work from home. You're not uh, physically making the extraordinary delights. So you're doing more of the admin stuff and working at a desk for the most part.
Uh, yeah, for the most part. I also
Yeah.
do speaking engagements and some travel throughout the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I work and live at home,
Yeah.
and running is one of those things that keeps me from being a complete hermit.
Got it. Okay. No, I mean, and obviously we're going to dive into your backstory here, and um, it's just it's so impressive. If it's one of those where if you're able to do all this, what's my excuse, and what's anybody else's excuse? At least that's my take going into this. So let's dive into your backstory. You can pick it up, wherever you'd like, and then we'll kind of walk through up until the present time. Um, obviously things changed. You mentioned 2011. Is that where you'd like to pick it up?
I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, before then, transitioning from Navy cook to Army bomb tech was a bit of a course correction. I tell people I got my first kill with a egg roll. Then I decided to start saving lives instead. But
Nice.
I'd been a Navy cook for 8 years. Most
Okay.
of that spent in, or at least half of that was spent in Italy, stationed in Italy, cooking for the commander of the Sixth Fleet, 3-star admiral,
Okay.
and it was absolutely incredible. I got to tour around the Mediterranean with the flagship, and to see so many countries in Europe, and come back home to Italy for 4 years. And I learned the language, learned the culture and the cuisine. Everything was amazing, but in this was about 2004, 2005, and
Mm-hmm.
we had both wars kicking off.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So um, I I'd grown up in a pretty, in this Ohio suburbs, right?
Okay.
And I'd had enough natural talent and ability to kind of, get by without,
Sure.
without having to put in a whole lot of hard work.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't an A student by any means,
Mm-hmm.
but I could get by, mostly smile and BS. But when I got to college, all those people with strong work ethic, quickly passed me by.
Got
Uh,
it.
and this all-American slacker needed a different path, and that was what the military was for. I joined the military, one, to get the college tuition back, um,
Yep.
and also to learn that the strong work ethic, those core values that I was kind of, you know, I admired but didn't really have. So
Sure.
in that time though, as I was getting promoted, I was learning, um, you know, how to you know be a stronger me. But
Sure.
along the way, it became less about me and more about the service, about
Mm-hmm.
others, about a team,
Mm-hmm.
and it was more of those external values.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was on the flagship, it- I was serving my country. I was doing my duty, but I was also really just cooking and uh, watching the war on Fox and CNN. So
Right.
I wanted to do something
You
that was a
wanted to
little more,
do more.
little
Yeah.
more direct,
Sure.
and and one of my talents, my skills, and my passion for service, and all of that, I wanted to put it
Yeah.
to the best use. So I I switched uniforms and jobs and became an explosive ordnance disposal technician, the military's bomb squad.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I told you before we hit record, I was in the army as well, and so have some experience dealing with EOD. And so now, when was this that you switched over to the army?
I joined the army in 2008
Okay.
and trained up at Eglin Air Force Base, just down the road from me now.
Okay.
And about just over a year of just constant training to be a soldier and then to become an EOD technician.
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
lot. Yep. That's a lot of training, right? Just for the bomb specific training.
you know, and
Yeah.
then I was sent to Fort Drum, upstate New York,
Yep.
and deployed to Iraq in 2010. And then in 2011, I was sent to Afghanistan.
Okay.
By that time, I was a team leader, so I'm the guy on a EOD team that actually gets in the bomb suit and goes downrange on these
Mm-hmm.
explosives.
Mm-hmm.
So all those car bombs, suicide vests, unexploded ordnance, all the like landmines and bombs that uh, just don't go off for one reason or another.
Mm.
Anything that goes boom, that's what we do.
Yeah. It's a little bit different than your Navy cook experience. It sounds like. And so obviously, the title of the podcast is From Adversity to Abundance. So, um, uh, you know, certainly going through training in the military has its level of adversity, I guess. So it's, I mean, you know, maybe the listener is thinking we've already covered your adversity, but I think things took quite a turn in 2011. It sounds like for you. So let's get into kind of what occurred in this particular incident.
I was about 8 months into this 1 year deployment, and I'd just come back from my 2 weeks of R&R. I
Mm-hmm.
got to see the whole family for Thanksgiving. I got to see my firstborn turn 1. It was awesome. It was so great. It was I call it
Mm-hmm.
my last page in the photo album. It was wonderful. It was
Mm-hmm.
great images. But then I was back on the battlefield,
Mm-hmm.
and um, on my way back out to our small command outpost,
Mm-hmm.
where my team was serving the Cav Scouts out there, and I we were in a convoy, not even on duty. We're in it's like a supply convoy, and the convoy leader called back and said, "EOD, there's something on the road ahead." So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, got to work, threw the luggage
Mm-hmm.
off the robot, threw the robot out the truck, and same thing we'd been seeing for a long time was a pressure plate and a jug full of homemade explosives. And
Mm-hmm.
the robot did its job, but I jumped out to go get the evidence
Mm-hmm.
and just dispose of the rest. About 20 meters from the original, there was a secondary device that hadn't been discovered.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one
Gotcha.
that got me. A, a explosion punted me into the air. I landed on my knees and elbows. I was still conscious, but the lights
Wow.
went out, and I needed like I didn't know what was going to happen next.
Mm-hmm.
There's some kind of a complex, like some ambush sometimes, and then
Sure.
they did start taking pot shots after that. So I needed
Right.
to get back in the fight. I reached up to fix. I thought my helmet had gotten pushed over my face, so I
Okay.
reached up to grab
To
the helmet,
reset that. Right. Right. Yep.
and the helmet was gone. And then that's when I realized, like, oh no, this
Uh,
something's really wrong here. And this is bad.
right.
My first sergeant's going to kill me for losing equipment.
Right.
and
Yeah. Gotcha.
and it was within a couple minutes, my team would drag me back to safety. The medevac chopper was on its way, and I was heading to Kandahar, then to Landstuhl, and then right back to the United States that I had just left days before.
Wow.
um I was at Walter Reed in
Yeah.
Bethesda, blind. The bomb had taken both my eyes. It cracked my skull in a few places where I was actually leaking spinal fluid right out of my nose.
Wow.
Um, it blew out both my eardrums, but I still had my sense of hearing. It was
Mm.
just perforated eardrums,
Okay.
and the cuts and scrapes and burns. But sitting there in that hospital bed,
Yeah. Yeah.
thinking,
What's going through your mind at that point?
I was thinking, I was angry. I was depressed. I was angry. I was mad at the Taliban. I was mad at the Afghans for not being able to take care of themselves. I was mad at the president and my command, my team
Mm.
that didn't catch this thing. I was mad at everybody,
Hmm.
but mostly I was mad at myself
Mm.
for letting it
They're
happen.
letting this happen. So just dive into that for a minute. Why were you mad at how did you let it happen? I mean, or why were you
We're
mad at
we're
just,
we're just highly. This is like this is the strongest military force that's ever been created on the planet
sure.
Earth,
Yep.
and I'm this uh, this I'm the guy who runs into danger when everybody else runs away. I've
Hmm.
been training and working for years before this
Hmm.
point.
Hmm.
Just I mean, it was the same thing we've been doing for
Hmm.
months,
Hmm.
and it got under my, got past me.
Got it. I see.
And it's just, you logically,
Hmm.
that the job is dangerous. There is no
Sure.
safe operation,
Right.
but emotionally, I couldn't forgive myself, and I kept
Got
thinking,
it.
why is this happening to me?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm smart, I'm capable. I've been doing this. I know this
Right.
job. I know this AO,
Mm.
but I was
Yeah.
mad.
So, I guess how long were you in the hospital for, and how did your mindset change over that time while you were in the hospital?
Well, it didn't take me long to
Mm-hmm.
shift mindset. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
between my upbringing and my experience in the military and my training
Mm-hmm.
and my incredibly supportive family and my actual family and my military family,
Mm-hmm.
I, I I I stopped thinking about what I've lost or what I couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking about, those other warriors up and down these halls
Mm-hmm.
at Walter Reed, and all of them are going through their own battles. And
Yep.
I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
soldier, I'm a sergeant, I'm an EOD technician, and
Mm-hmm.
I have these responsibilities. Like my life
Yeah.
doesn't belong to me. It,
That's really, yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off, but that is the crux of, I mean, this podcast. It really is just a matter of, I mean, we've had many guests on with very different stories and everything, but the really the constant theme is that shift from, you know, focusing on yourself to focusing on others, and like you just said, your responsibility to those others. So that's really, I certainly don't want to pretend this happened in 5 minutes or that was an easy process. I'm not indicating that in any way, but it just, that's a constant theme that I've heard through, from all of the guests, and certainly I've had no one on that's been through what you've been through, but that's okay. So you're looking around, and it's no longer, at least as much, about yourself. It's more about others, it sounds like.
so yeah, I just I took the focus off of me. I
Yep.
I, I decided like you said, it's not an easy process,
Right,
but
right.
the transition, once I looked at it from a different perspective, happened very quickly.
Hmm.
I just
Okay.
started asking, instead of why is this happening to me? Why is this happening for me?
Hmm.
And then
Wow.
what can I do rather than what can't I do?
Hmm.
Okay. And I like to use a metaphor from my job as a bomb tech. Is it,
Hmm.
we're given these like each 3-person team is given this huge shipping container full of tools, bomb suits, robots, you name it, to battle, to counteract and diffuse everything from little bullets to nuclear weapons and everything in between. So we get out to the battlefield, and we're given this armored truck. It's not nearly the size of the shipping container, and we got to kind of triage what we're going to bring with us that we'll
Hmm.
most likely encounter on the
Hmm.
battlefield, and we got to
Hmm.
leave some tools behind. And uh, in Afghanistan, we found that our missions were on these goat trails, and we couldn't take our vehicles anywhere. So uh,
Hmm.
we had to pack on our backs and go dismounted on foot,
Hmm.
on these
Wow.
missions. So we left pretty much all of our
Hmm.
tools behind, and we had ropes, carabiners, grappling hooks,
Wow.
blocks of C4, and our creativity, our training, our team, all the other assets on the battlefield,
Uh-huh.
uh, and just our imagination to make sure we did the same mission, and we followed it through to completion.
Hmm.
So you can't just say, "Oh, I left the tool behind. I'll be right back." We
Right. Yeah,
this,
you've made a decision, and there's no going back, at least for that particular mission, or that, time
and
period.
there's no such thing as mission failure.
Right.
So in fact, it was at uh, his book Call Sign Chaos, General Mattis. I love what
Okay.
he
Yep.
said. In the Marines, things being hard was never a good excuse for mission failure.
Hmm.
And I took that to
Hmm.
heart. So I was in there at
Hmm.
the hospital going, if I'm gonna be blind for the rest of my life, I'm gonna be the
Hmm.
best, I'm gonna be the best damn blind person I can be.
Hmm.
And that's what I did. I got to work.
Hmm.
I spent about a month and a half at
Okay.
Walter Reed, and that
Okay.
was to just repair, parts of my face.
Hmm.
Um, but they're doing prosthetic arms and legs and that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And thankfully for me, the blast had only hit me from about the neck up. It only hit me in the head, which is like, for us Hales is the perfect spot. Um, it's the highest area of highest density. Um,
Nice.
but I was virtually untouched from the neck down. So at Walter Reed, they really had nothing for me. So I got sent down to Augusta, Georgia, to the VA hospital there to it's one of the blind rehabilitation centers, they got blind school.
Okay.
And just for about 6 months I learned
Hmm.
how to use the cane, accessibility tools like my computer or my phone, and all sorts of stuff, living skills, daily life skills. You'd be I had to learn so many simple things you would think would be
Yeah.
so simple, and you don't even
Right.
think about when you're blind.
Right.
How are you going to do that? Like how do I figure out how much toothpaste to put on my brush, or
Right.
how the
Right.
how the hell do I keep my socks paired? So
Yeah,
um
and I hesitate to insert this, and people make fun of me for bringing this up because you know, because it's so about a year ago I ruptured my Achilles tendon, right? And again, you know, you can say that's no big deal or whatever, but similar thing where what I'm saying is a similar lesson I learned was that I just thought it'd be about my Achilles and that's it, and it's no big, but I can in some ways relate to what you're saying is that all these little things that I thought would be I just never thought about. You just take it for granted. And then you realize, no, this is much I got to relearn or figure out a way around this. Just it affects your everyday life. And again,
mm,
not trying to compare, I'm just relating in some way, shape, or form what you're getting at. You had to relearn all these things that, were you probably, correct me if I'm wrong, took for granted 6, 7 months prior. So
my
what was that like?
Achilles tendon must have been brutal.
I mean, it it was not fun. It's just more a matter of, look, you got to hop around. You can't drive for 3 months, so that affects the
Mm,
family. And it's it's just but how do I get from one room to the other? Or how do I shower? Little things like that where it's like, okay, I used to, and even now take it for granted, right? But um my point is it's bad enough that you can't see, but it affects so many other things. I can imagine. So what was that 6 months like? Was it, I mean, were there a lot of, I'm sure there were ups and downs. It wasn't just a straight line of progress. Is that fair to say?
well, I mean, it wasn't just, I mean, it was a struggle, of
Yeah.
course. It
Yeah.
was hard work. And there were plenty of times where there was just frustration,
Sure.
exasperation.
Sure.
Especially like the hardest thing to learn is the orientation and mobility,
Okay.
navigating with a cane. And I remember, like the virtual, like the literal and figurative finish line was me being able to walk out, like all the way from my room on the top floor all the way down to the bottom of to the ground floor, the hospital, out the
Hmm.
front door, down the sidewalk in the street, across the street into the Fisher house, where my family was staying.
Okay.
And if I could do that, I had enough independence that I could graduate the school.
Hmm.
But
Okay.
I had to cross through a parking lot in on the
Hmm.
way.
Okay.
not to mention across the street. But
Wow.
the part, there was one day where it was after working hours, everybody was gone, and
Hmm.
I attempted to do this on my own,
Hmm.
and I walked into the parking lot. I got turned around, and it's like the vast empty void of space,
Wow.
and you try to, like, even turning around and trying to backtrack, you could
You
be
can't.
even, compounding the problem.
Yeah. So
And
you're disoriented and you're alone. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm hearing. Is that fair to say?
yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's terrifying.
Hmm.
Like, I hate having that feeling of helplessness,
Sure. Yep.
because of course, I'm a bright, capable person,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and but
Right.
I'm just put in an untenable situation.
Hmm. Right.
And there's plenty of other episodes that were entirely comical,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
uh, it, but um,
Yeah.
definitely a difficult time
Sure.
getting through.
Yep. And so as we move along, because and again, that's one of the risks with this podcast is I don't want to act like this was again snapping the fingers and we're magically into abundance now. It's a real struggle, and this is a lot of time and effort and pain and struggle, and you know it's just real hardship, obviously. But so then you walk us through the next few years, if you would.
Well, for the next 4 years, uh, we relocated to Florida, because
Okay.
I told the military. They asked me at Walter Reed. They said, "Where do you want to retire?" Because obviously I can't be a bomb tech anymore.
Hmm.
Um, and I said, "I don't want to retire."
Hmm.
And it's like,
Hmm.
wait, what? What? Um, and I'd learned about these other blind active duty personnel who were filling other roles. Captain Scott Smiley
Hmm.
became a company commander for an all wounded unit, transition unit, that their whole entire job is getting well.
Hmm.
And there's Ivan Castro, who is a ranger, Army Ranger, who
Hmm.
went to Special Operations Recruiting Branch in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and brag. So if these guys could stay on active duty, I could
Yeah.
figure it out, because I love the military, and I didn't want to stop.
Hmm.
So I said, send me down to the bomb school, and I'll be an instructor. So I sent
That's
me to
awesome.
Florida, and for about a year and a half, I went through the medical board process as I was instructing. And in the meantime, though, I also got into mountain climbing. So what I'd done is, because these other blind guys were doing
Hmm.
incredible things,
Hmm.
as soon as I could learn how to use my phone, my computer, I was doing these internet searches for blind plus outdoors, blind plus
So
and
cool. Yeah.
anything, so I could learn from others who, I'm not going to blaze
Yeah.
new trail. I'm going to figure out how they're doing it.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely. Just real quickly, there are a couple of things I want to pull out there. Um, One is that I completely agree. Why reinvent the wheel if if someone else is doing it, just follow what they're doing. Maybe you push the boundary in a little one
yeah,
particular way that they're not, or something. Um, but secondly, and this is a bigger point for me, or at least I think for our listeners, is that we get into this thing where we say don't compare to others, don't compare yourself to others. It seems like that's a common thing these days, because you don't want to feel bad about yourself. You're not living up to the expectation or someone else's accomplishments, or um you know projection onto your life, or vice versa. But I think what you're presenting is that this is a very healthy way of being inspired by others who you are comparing yourself to them, because you're saying I'm in a similar situation or similar circumstances, and they are doing all they didn't just retire. and they, so I think it can be healthy and encouraging and inspiring to compare if you're using it in that context.
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, it's just my 2 cents on that. So you were
The
inspired by.
only the
Yep.
only people I compare myself to, my former self
Hmm.
and the future self I could be.
Okay.
And I love how Ed Milet says it. He's like,
Hmm.
I am chasing the potential me. And I
Love it.
am running every single day. I'm sprinting after that guy.
There you go.
And I only look to others who whom I want to emulate.
Sure.
I only
Yeah.
look to compare what to give you an example of what I could be. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely self-defeating to
Right.
actually balance others' success against yours. It's
Sure.
just
Yeah.
move as long as you're taking action, you're executing, and you're
Right.
moving your own ball forward.
Yep.
Mm.
No, I agree with that. I mean, a comparison may not be the right term, but I'm hoping, from this, even from this episode, someone can be inspired by your story and look at what you've accomplished, and, maybe push themselves a little bit more, to be an inspiration for others and serve others. That's kind of the point of the
So
show.
yeah, so I was looking at others, like Eric
Yeah.
Weinmayer. He's the first blind guy to climb Mount Everest, and I sought him out. I went mountain climbing with him. Um,
That's
I
that's
and
awesome.
uh, one of my good friends is Lonnie Bedwell. He's the first blind guy to kayak the entire Grand Canyon. So I found him. I went kayaking with him. Yeah, and I
Amazing.
was not just and of course Ivan Castro I mentioned before is a
Hmm.
ranger. He's a big runner.
Hmm.
He's the guy who would talk to me into um, somehow I got myself registered for 4 marathons and the Army 10 miler within the same 4 month span.
Wow.
And I never run anything for longer than a 10K. So uh,
Wow.
but uh, part of this was, learning how to be a better me,
Yeah.
or at
A better
least
version.
survive. But part of it was also that terror of getting sucked up by, that the opposite, like the getting,
Yeah.
trapped by my disability, stuck on the
Right.
couch, feeling sorry for myself, becoming a statistic,
Yeah.
and it terrifies me every day, and that's why I get up and I'm chasing my potential me. I'm also running from my other potential me,
Huh. That's an
and
interest. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Because we're never just entirely static, right? You're either moving forward or backward, and obviously you have to slow down, rest. Everyone needs that, right?
mhm,
But I hear what you're saying. It's not only where you were headed; it's also what you're moving away from. That's interesting. Um, so then I know, you mentioned already to me that it wasn't just your eyesight; it was also some real adversity with your hearing.
yeah.
Would you mind elaborating on that?
Well, for 4 years after the injury, I was doing all this stuff, right?
Hmm.
And I was running, mountain climbing, kayaking. I was speaking across the country and telling people my story
Hmm.
about how I'm kicking blindness's butt,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden, uh, due to complications with the blast, the cracked skull and the leak of spinal fluid,
Hmm.
it was supposed to have been patched, but I guess there was either a small leak or it opened up again,
Hmm.
and I contracted bacterial meningitis. And I
Hmm.
was right back in the hospital in 2015, and it nearly killed me.
Wow.
But when I came out of my, almost comatose stupor, uh,
Hmm.
it, my um, hearing was being stolen. It was like I was underwater and I couldn't. I was hearing something, but it was going away quickly. And
Hmm.
the doctor said whether it was either the heavy doses of antibiotics or the bacteria itself was stealing what the bomb hadn't taken. And my
Hmm.
response was, what? Uh, but
Right.
I actually,
Nice.
I asked the doctor. Said, "So, doc, what you're telling me is I'm never going to have to pretend to pay attention ever again." Uh,
Nice. Got a legit excuse at this point. Um, I'm kidding, but it's far from an excuse. So, okay, so what transpired after that then?
well, besides the hearing loss, I mean, I got out of the hospital. I was totally blind and completely deaf, and it also took that inner ear sense of balance, my vestibular balance. So I was in a wheelchair,
Wow.
and um, I was trapped. I was trapped inside my body. Like my entire world ended at my fingertips.
Huh.
And I was sitting at my breakfast bar in the kitchen. Um, I had no idea what to do. I was feeling sorry for myself. I was, those same nasty thoughts that start
Sure.
creeping in. My
Right.
call my demons. The what ifs, the why me's. Like,
Mhm.
what? Why does this have to keep happening to me? Like, what have I paid my dues?
Right. Sure. Yeah,
And
I can't imagine. I mean, I just honestly just I mean, I don't know how that comes across, but it's just very difficult for me to I think for most of us who have not been through that, that's I think those would be completely normal thoughts and they're entirely understandable. Um, so how long were you kind of in that, you know, poor me state, I guess, at that the second iteration of serious adversity?
well, not gonna lie. I wasn't I wasn't a very happy camper for a little while.
Hmm.
Um, uh, but it was again, it was one of those things where I was thinking about this. Like, I I've been preaching this thing,
Mm.
uh, triumph through tragedy, success because of struggle. All of this for 4 years, and now I've got to put my money where my mouth is.
Huh.
And it
Interesting.
was it was literally like, if I quit now, it'll be really embarrassing. But the truth was, um, and the other thing is, and it's not as glamorous, is that there's what's the
Mhm.
alternative? Like, I could feel sorry for myself and just sit here,
Yeah.
or I could do something.
Right.
And sitting around, and it sounded really boring, and it in itself sounded very depressing.
Sure.
So I started thinking about, what can I do?
Hmm.
How
Yeah.
can all of those, the talking computers and barcode scanners and my phone, all that audio books and everything silenced. I
Hmm.
couldn't even get input in. I just thought maybe it would have been a good idea to have learned Braille at the blind school, but
Mm.
technology, lazy. Um,
Yeah.
but my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, was actually literally like writing uh every letter of every word she needed to talk to me, say, to convey, in palm of my hand.
Wow.
And I mean, it was tedious and frustrating. It was the only way I could communicate. So
That's yeah.
I
Wow.
I did get up and I got back to work. I learned, you know, how to walk again, without my balance.
So you
And
just
I
had
was
kind of a permanent state of like vertigo with the balance or
It's similar to
okay.
vertigo. We
Okay.
get our balance three different ways. One is
Okay.
the inner ear gyro, right?
Yep.
And then
Hmm.
two is actually visually understanding our world in
Sure.
relation to us.
Yeah.
And third way is in physical contact with
Got it.
the earth.
Okay.
So I'm out too.
Wow.
But as
That's man. I just I don't mean to laugh at all. It's just you clearly have a great sense of humor about all this and
So I started using the trekking poles
okay.
that
Yep.
I would take in the mountains as one for balance, but I was also like feeling my way, like
Mm,
intending. But
okay.
I would use them just to go down the driveway, get my mail, and come back up. And that would be exhausting. But
Hmm.
I would do it and I would get better at it. And then I would go down to like the neighborhood gate and come back. And
Hmm.
then I got on my treadmill in the garage and I would just hit the quick start and it would be like half a mile an hour. And I would just hold on to with dear life, and I would
Yeah.
just walk. And then I'd hit that little, the speed up button, beep, beep, beep. And I would go a little bit faster.
So you
And
did you. Yep.
eventually I was running again.
Wow. So I mean, you did what you could do, and you focused on incremental progress. It sounds like. Um, so, and again, as we start to move toward the end of the show, I know there's a ton more to your story, and we are I recognize that. But compare yourself now to at that point. You um, maybe just take the running as an example. How did you get from, okay, I can walk, on a treadmill slowly, to the race you just did, which is incredible. I mean, how did you make that leap?
I'm always pushing myself to improve. One was just to get off my butt,
Hmm.
but then there's fulfillment. There's there's joy in accomplishment,
Hmm.
right? And
Yep.
then beyond accomplishment, there's like this Maslow's, there's actually a Tony Robbins hierarchy of needs,
Hmm.
and 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 it's personal needs,
Hmm.
and we need to feel like we have meaning.
Hmm.
We need to accomplish things. We need connection with the rest of our society, and
Sure.
w- we need to like the highest order of success is um, to give back, and I
Hmm.
found to contribute to society.
Hmm.
And I found that if the more I can succeed,
Hmm.
the more I can tell my story. I can it's like a roadmap, do a blueprint for somebody else's survival. And
Yeah.
and so I continue to try my best to
Mm.
succeed, fail and succeed, fail and succeed over and over again. But I
Yeah.
keep trying and I'm like, hey, here's how I did it. It worked for me. Let me show you.
That's that's awesome. That's truly inspiring. It's a great. You're definitely setting a great example. There's no question about that. Um, so I mean, how was this on your? You mentioned your girlfriend at the time, but how has this affected family life for you? What does that look like? How's this adversity affected your family?
Well, it happened 11 years ago.
Hmm.
So two of the boys weren't around,
Sure.
and the oldest has never known me
Hmm.
um, as a side of that.
Got it.
And I only met, well, only started dating my wife
Hmm.
after going blind and deaf.
Got it.
But one major thing is they haven't let me have a driver's license in 11 years. Uh,
Not
so
not
that's
that it sounds like you've tried.
it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Maybe Tesla will figure that one out soon.
Yeah,
But
there you go.
uh, but it's everything's I just everything's a puzzle. Everything's a game, a challenge to
Mm,
figure out.
that's good.
And
Mhm.
we look at every day as just something, like any other family, right? Any
Mm,
other business, any other group of people. We just try to figure out how the best go about our days and our lives.
yeah, I love it. That's awesome. It's a puzzle. It's a challenge. It's a game. So let's get into your businesses a little bit. Just let's talk about your. It sounds like you have two primary businesses, right? That you're
Yeah.
owner of, and let's talk about those if you would.
Well, while I was learning how to walk again,
Hmm.
and I was waiting for this cochlear implant to be installed. It takes
Hmm.
a long time. It was almost a year before I could actually have a conversation with somebody. It was
Wow.
6 months before I actually heard anything.
Hmm.
So in that time, I tried to, like, I was focusing outward, and Thanksgiving was coming up, and since I love to cook, used to be my profession, decided to throw a huge uh Thanksgiving feast. And we invited all sorts of people, and family and friends, and even some stranded EOD students on the holiday. And I
Nice.
started I started cooking um weeks in advance. I started making desserts, cakes, pies, cookies, like, putting it in the freezer. And I started making batch after batch of fudge. I mean, I was just like, this was a time when I was really having a hard. I was really struggling with
Uh-huh.
my new disability.
Hmm.
But when I started cooking, um, I forgot about it. I was focused on creating this something wonderful for other people, giving them a wonderful experience.
Hmm.
And at that time, my wife noticed two things. One was a smile on my face. She hadn't seen in months. And the other thing she noticed was the fudge was piling up. So, and she started sneaking it out the front door, like you have to be real stealthy around a blind deaf guy. And
Yeah, she
uh
she must have some ninja skills.
she was just giving it away. And friends,
Gotcha.
neighbors, and they
Uh-huh.
started coming back and asking if they could buy some for, like, a party, birthday, some. And the capitalist in me said, well, of course you may. Um
Right.
that turned into Extraordinary Delights.
Wow. So it was
Like,
entirely organic. It wasn't like a really
yeah,
planned
I
thing.
had no ambition to become a fudge business owner, but it just kind of snowballed. Eventually, there was, out in my garage, there was the treadmill, the rower next to the stationary bike, next to a shrink wrap machine. Um, it's and soon we were doing corporate orders, thousands of pounds, and we needed to expand.
That's awesome.
Uh, so after a couple of years of just building up the brand and the business,
Hmm.
we started having some success, and
Hmm.
we needed to decide what we were going to do with the revenue. And we decided to get into real estate. We bought we started with probably the worst idea ever for a blind deaf guy. It was out of state, from online auction, sight unseen, so to speak. Uh, and we,
Jeez.
we were gonna use hard money.
Uh-huh.
And of course, it went just like you can imagine. Uh, everything went wrong.
Yeah.
The first I put the contract for the auction in my own name, and then
Okay.
of course the hard money
So
lender
yeah, it
didn't.
said no,
So
no
we had to
go.
do it. We had to go all cash.
Wow.
And then of course the renovation budget just exploded when,
Sure. Yeah.
um, thankfully our estimates were way off in the right direction. And it was this was 2019,
Okay.
2020, and the real estate market was just starting to really take off.
Yeah, yeah.
And it survived. We survived. Our real estate put us our first project put us through the ringer. And then now our personal portfolio, we have 5 units
Okay.
in Akron, Ohio, both long and short term. We just completed another renovation project there, and that's going to be another short term rental. We're limited partners on a 52 unit in North Carolina.
Okay.
And uh, I've recently started another business, uh, flipping and wholesaling, and picking up more for our portfolio in the Pensacola area with a
Hmm.
fellow wounded warrior brother of mine, Daniel.
That's awesome. Because you didn't have enough to do, right? You needed another business. Um, so that's super cool. So which of the three then, which one is kind of drives your profits right now?
Um, Profits?
Yeah.
um,
I
it's
guess,
you
yeah,
know, I'm being a bit sardonic, but during the hot months,
yeah.
fudge sales kind of slump.
Okay.
Uh, it just because we take extra care to put it in, like a cooler with dry ice, and
Hmm.
of course the shipping costs are a bit exorbitant.
Yeah.
But we are
Yeah.
gearing up for the holidays, and that's
Yeah.
where we really do make the
Hmm.
most of the money for the year.
Okay.
We have one project nearing completion. We're halfway through another project, and we're about to pick up our another one, $1 million flip
Hmm.
in
Wow.
Pensacola. And so uh, it kind of seems like money is always gone, but
Right.
uh,
Right.
I did learn how to in these these experiences have learned how to utilize private money and hard
Sure.
money, and it's not just ours. But I can tell you what, it's amazing how well the Akron short-term rental is cash
Hmm.
flowing. It's
Okay.
amazing how well it's doing. You wouldn't think, because it's not really like one of those vacation destinations.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So
Um,
is it, what is it? It's business people, or what's your typical client profile?
it runs the spectrum from family travel. There are three major hospitals there, so sometimes we get traveling nurses or
Sure. Yeah.
patient families, that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. There's
Gotcha.
Akron University, and we'll get graduation, family of the graduates, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
There's also a lot of lesser known, but known to the locals,
Hmm.
points of interest.
Hmm.
One of the largest outdoor concert venues is like 10 minutes away,
Hmm.
uh, in the Midwest.
Interesting. Okay. So what,
So
so
it does really well.
that's awesome. I mean, and real estate is a fantastic way to go. I think, to, like you said, you needed somewhere to put your money, but it sounds like you're doing a little more than just parking parking money somewhere. But
Mm.
um, so what would you say, kind of looking back on, the adversity you have been through? What lessons have you been able to apply to your businesses?
Of course, in the military, it's all about teamwork.
Yep.
Even though I used to put the bomb suit on, and I'd be
Yep.
the one guy that walked down range, I I have to rely on my team,
Yep.
my supporting elements, the people in the air, people, there's so many elements and so
Hmm.
many resources at my disposal. I can't do it all on my own.
Hmm.
So when I became blind and then deaf,
Hmm.
I had to put that really to work, and be able to ask for help,
Sure.
and build a team
Hmm.
to do just about everything. Everything turns into a team sport, even running.
Hmm.
I just turned that same team building skill
Yeah.
into business,
Yeah.
with partnering with
Sure.
my friend to do
Hmm.
the wholesaling and flipping. Um, and I taught him, I introduced him to real estate after
Hmm.
learning myself,
Hmm.
and we share duties. He does, he's like the CEO, and
Uh-huh.
I'm the chief pizza orderer. Um, but um, for everything, we build a system,
Sure.
and you find it, the whole who, not how mentality.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Was that Dan Sullivan? Is that right? Who Not
Yeah,
How?
no,
Yeah, that's a good book for sure. No, I love that. So as we start to wrap up here, I'm going to fire off a few rapid fire questions. Are you good with that?
sure, let's do it.
Um, If you were given $10 million tomorrow, what would you do with it?
Mm, I would take about 40%
Mhm.
and um, invest. 50% would go to setting up my family and their comfort, whether that be, um, retirement accounts, home, um, whichever, and then 10% to tidings.
Okay, I love it. What's I'm almost hesitant to ask this one with you because it seems like you're not afraid to get uncomfortable, but what's one area of your life personally that where you need to get a little more uncomfortable right now?
What area of my life is making me uncomfortable?
And which area of your life should you get more uncomfortable? What part of your
Oh,
life should you challenge yourself in the next, the rest of this year, let's say?
hmm. Um, I'm addicted to air conditioning, and uh, truth is, I need to do better at developing personal relationships. So,
Okay.
be a better husband, be a better father. Um, then my family and my friends, I need to reach out to them and find out what they're up to more.
Yeah. I
I'm
can relate to.
always
Yeah,
focused on the challenge and
sure.
business and all that. And I think I neglected that. At
Yeah.
least I feel that way.
No, I understand. I can relate to a lot of that. Um, okay, so this one's less about you personally, but what is one thing I heard this on another podcast, I stole it. What is one thing in 40 years that people today will feel nostalgic about um, today? So in 40 years, what are people going to look back on that we have now that with nostalgia?
Um, Standard um, shifting, uh, or standard manual transmission.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I do.
Is it too? Is maybe how about physical books?
Physical books is a good one.
uh,
Yeah, I like that. Um, that's actually, yeah. Do you have are you able to consume books or how does that work?
Audiobooks. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a number of ways. I mean, like the audiobooks, Kindle. I can.
Hmm.
There's so many awesome apps out there for
Hmm.
accessibility. I can use my phone's camera and just scan a page and it'll read it to me.
That's awesome. That's
It's
so cool.
still better because all of those are like kind of the robotic Siri, Alexa
Sure.
voices.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's still better when it's audiobook.
Yeah, yeah,
But
because it's sure, right. Got it. Speaking of that, what do you listen to podcasts or anything?
all the time, all the time,
What
because
what are a couple? Yeah.
because this thing is Bluetooth connected to my phone. I can like read my mail in my pocket. Oh, I can listen to audiobooks. I'm always like in most of the time I'm in the Matrix and my wife has to come over. I'm like,
That's really interesting because we have that just in our home with just the AirPods, and it's like my wife will get annoyed because I start talking to her, and I don't realize that she's listening to her latest murder podcast, not listening to my podcast. But you know, in your in your case, I imagine it's a little bit more challenging for your wife to even know when you're listening to something or not. What podcast do you listen to? Do you have a couple recommendations?
I have I listen to so many. I really love Mike Rose.
Hmm.
That's the way I heard it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all sorts of real estate related, bigger pockets,
Sure.
um, and lots of was Hunter Thompson's
Oh yeah.
cash flow. What was it? Creative
Yeah, I
cash
forget.
flow
Yeah, yeah.
or
I
capital
just
raiser.
yeah,
Um,
I finally read his book. I'm looking at it right now. Raising No, that's a
oh,
different one. I
raising
did read
capital
his
for
Raising Capital for
real
Real
estate.
Estate. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's a good one.
It is.
I love his 100 topics idea. But
Okay.
um, I also love listening to, self-improvement stuff, Lewis
Sure.
Howes, Tom Bellew,
Okay.
and just these guys are just crushing it in business and life and relationships, and there's incredible, great tips
Yeah.
for um, just
Yeah.
living a better life.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. You mentioned Ed Milet and Tony Robbins, and just being exposed to that type of mindset, even if you're not gonna, even if your life looks different than theirs, it's can be inspiring and educational. I love it. So, um, where can our listeners find you online if they want to reach out?
Well, I'm on all the major social media platforms. I think I mentioned earlier that the Instagram is beyond me, but
Yeah,
you can find us at eodfudge.com and at EOD Confections on all the social media pages.
fantastic. Um, Aaron, is there any question you wish I'd asked that I haven't asked?
I think we got through pretty much everything. What am
Okay.
I having for lunch? I don't know. What's
Good.
next?
I
I
guess I'm
don't know.
thorough. Yeah, what's next for you?
Uh, I just finished a 2,000-kilometer virtual race over the last 4 months. What's next? Maybe a nap. But
Right.
I'm running a in-person 100-miler back in my hometown of Akron. Uh, it's called the Canal Corridor 100, and it's all along the Ohio Erie Canal towpath. And I've done it once before, 2 years ago, and I can't wait to get back to it again. That's in October.
That is so cool. And I mean, yeah, you're definitely an inspiration. You know, I just you've obviously been through so much. But I just want to thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story. And I really hope the listeners get something out of this. I know they will. And I would encourage everyone. I think I'm going to be ordering a lot of fudge for Christmas this year.
Thank you
So
very much. My family
yeah,
thinks so.
there you go. Any final thoughts for us, Aaron?
Uh, just, uh, I would recommend everybody don't be afraid to fail. You know, that's how we learn. Success doesn't teach us anything. I
Yeah,
have been failing up my entire life and screwing up so many things, and hopefully I've learned a thing or two because you know I do feel like a better person today than I was yesterday. So
yeah.
I've got to be doing something okay. But um, I I'm not afraid to take a risk,
That's
calculated, but I'm not afraid to fail. I
love it.
would recommend everybody else do the same.
It's fantastic advice. It's yeah, you've dropped a lot of knowledge in this, practical knowledge, and just it's been excellent. So I really appreciate you taking the time, Aaron. I know I had to harass you a little bit here and there, and find you on multiple platforms. You have a lot going on, and you're an in demand speaker, and so I do appreciate you taking the time, and best of luck to you with your multiple businesses, and thank you so much.
Thank you. No, I
And to the
appreciate the invite. Would you mind if I did a quick plug?
please,
I don't know if you
please,
can see in the background here. There's a black apron. I
yeah,
have. Um, we have a really cool tactical apron that people can see me in on our TikTok show, Aaron Ham's Cooking Without Looking. But we have it for sale on our website, eodfudge.com,
yeah,
and it'd be a great holiday pickup if anybody's interested in combat cooking.
combat cooking. So eodfudge.com, and
Go to our apparel page and you'll see the um, combat apron,
awesome.
tactical apron.
That's so cool. And then the TikTok, what was the TikTok information again?
uh, at EOD Confections.
Awesome. Yeah, I gotta. My daughter's on TikTok. I gotta try to try to get there myself. But thank you
I'm
so
immune
much.
to it.
Oh man, you've been
Um, Thanks a lot,
you're
Jamie.
yeah, absolutely, Aaron. I really appreciate you taking the time. And speaking of time, to our listeners out there, we also appreciate you taking the time. Your time is a very valuable resource. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.